going live. It's going to take its time. Hopefully
It's going to take its time.
It's going to take its time. And we're live. Welcome to the Flow Show. Sarah Felicia here, and we have
Tim Glover over here on the road.
Hopefully you can hear us. Sorry, we're a couple minutes late from our 12:12. Today we're going to talk about heart-centered leadership. Stay with us.
Can't hear anything on this end, but we're not supposed to hear anything, right?
And welcome back. Tim's on the road, so Tim, you're gonna play some guitar?
That was the air guitar intro.
That was a beautiful heart-centered air guitar intro.
It was more of an electric guitar than an acoustic guitar because I had to actually do some funny, tricky stuff with the whole throwing the voice. Because the acoustic guitar is more of a ting, ting, ting. That's different. Anyway,
some edge today. So why did we decide to talk about heart-centered leadership today?
Well, aside from the fact that it's entirely central to absolutely everything we do and we be, it's a nice way of framing the need to actually move and pivot from a head orientation, the intellectual orientation, to more of a heart where we actually get in touch with our imagination. Could you please explain that, Tim? Well, here's the thing that I never knew. Being of my vintage and also having studied like crazy business, and I got an accounting designation, I got 3 accounting designations, Bachelor of Math, everything else. Everything was very intellectual and rational. And so when I ran into this notion of heart-centered anything, I happened to do that with my wife, Sharon, and who was explaining to me how heart orientation is needed on the planet at this point in time. She came from an environmental background, and she couldn't understand why it was that business people couldn't actually understand something that was so obvious to her. And you and I have had our fair share of that back and forth and that debate, and I'm recognizing, my role on the planet is to bridge, the best I can, bridge business from a head orientation to a heart orientation and to a full integrated orientation, which I still haven't answered what heart orientation is yet.
Well, except for I'm just going to test my mic here as well, because I'm not sure if it's working. Someone's just logged in. But I was going to say, we literally just had this conversation. I had hired these business mentors 3 years ago and said, yes, I want to help heart-centered leaders. And they were like, what do you mean heart-centered? What does that mean? And it was inconceivable for me that someone didn't understand heart-centered, and it almost made me question my own ideas about what that meant.
So imagine living with me for 27 years in the form of my wife, Sharon, and me kind of going like the heart-centered thing, it seems to me that's a lot more hugging. I guess if you're on you're at an event or something, you want to hug your business partners, or you go out on a field day and you actually, because there was actually team building where you actually go and you'd climb mountains and figure out stuff in the high ropes and that kind of stuff, and then you'd hug later. So I thought, okay, that must be heart oriented. And it was because she had all kinds of background in leadership development that allowed people not to just use their head, but to get into their bodies. And then getting into the bodies, you can actually navigate from your head, from your heart, from your gut, from your hands, because it's what we call locus. Like, where are you orienting from?
So that first meeting, then, when we had that very first meeting when we met in Flow that we've talked about in some of our libraries, and I saw those models, as a business person, and I told you the first day I met you, I love you.
Yes, that was the very first day. He says, I love you. I go, okay, interesting response, but I'll go with it.
Interesting response. I was loving you and Sharon through those models. Yeah.
And I'd also had, because my time with over the last 27 years is also 7 years of it was in the music business, because when Sharon and I got together, she wanted to do what we're now referring to as heart-centered leadership, which we now refer to as flow. So flow leadership. And flow leadership's with a little bit more of a twist to it, because there's a lot more elements that I've learned over the years that go with that. But when we first started, we went down Bay Street in Toronto, Canada, and I started talking about this orientation to the leaders of large organizations. And the feedback I got at the time, again, the time frame being really important, was that what you're talking about really does make perfect sense. It seems to me that all the literature, the real bleeding edge literature I'm reading, and these are the CEOs and or the chief HR people for multinationals, and they're saying, but my problem is I've hired 200 people across Canada and whatever, how many thousand across the world, and it's their job to figure this out. And at the time, they were having a hard time. The boomers were fighting with the Xers at the time, and then the Xers were fighting. The millennials weren't even on the scene at this point in time. And Sharon said, "Oh my gosh, like we've worked with this all the time. We can help you every which way Sunday." And they said, "You know what? If I brought you in, you would show us that we don't really know what we're doing. So we would end up actually displacing and or having to fire and upgrade everybody else. And I can't, on my watch, I can't really support that." And we went away from those meetings, and Sharon was going, she was really terrified going on into big corporate before she went in. And she explains that she was really terrified. She goes, "Oh my gosh, these big players, they know way more than me, and they're the ones running the world." And then when she came out of those meetings, she said, "I'm even more terrified now because having met those people, I realized they have no idea how to orient to people and how to orient and how to get past unconscious bias that is actually driven by a head orientation as opposed to a heart orientation where you actually are able to step past and through unconscious bias." So she was stunned, and I didn't really know what the hell she was saying to me at the time. But over the 27 years we've worked together, a good chunk in music and then in business consulting, come to understand that, yeah, she was right. And so now there are more people on the planet that are awake to this. And I think COVID is actually shaking the world up to wake the world up to the fact that there's another way of orienting, not just to business, but to life. But, the core of society right now is business.
Yeah.
And as we say at Litecour, the core of society is business. The core of business is people. The core of people is light.
Which I loved when I first, I looked you up. Who is this guy? When I first met you, looked up Litecour and loved that message, and also the wake up to show up to light up, understanding like this is our time. And I, as the broadcast visionary, knew there was going to be something that was as big that was going to occur within the economy and therefore all other systems. I've been talking about this for years. And so to see what you guys have developed in the business world was exactly what I had been looking for. And it was such a synchronicity and profound moment when we had connected. And there's people, I've got my phone here, so there's people commenting, "Hi Rome, hi Karaoke," and they're mentioning that you're in the car, but you're not driving, as you can see, his hands are not
I've stopped. And the
he's
reason I'm in
the car because Sharon, our dear Sharon, is in her third round of chemo.
Yeah, so it's the set. So this is the second go at chemo. She's in and this is right now. And I dropped her off at the hospital, and I did a video on this because I was so moved. I did a video on this just earlier this morning, and it posted it to LinkedIn saying I was just so moved by these workers who are heart-centered leaders. Like there's a grand example of heart-centered leadership is these healthcare workers that are actually putting their own well-being on the line every second of every day. And when in going through this, so we've been going to the cancer clinic, and the people there are just outstanding, like unbelievably outstanding. And I've said this a couple times, I'll say it again, is Sharon's rightly so. They're pricking her with needles. She's in there. There's not a whole pile of people because they would actually change things in the chemo suite right now. But there are all kinds of people in there that are really in bad shape. And Sharon's got cancer, so she's among those. She just has more resources that she can actually access in terms of dealing with stress and dealing with potential death and all those things that scare the living crap out of all of us.
And she's got a lot of support around her.
And she's got amazing support with people who are having to be in that situation all the time. It's profound. And the nurse practitioners, the nurses that are all, and the doctors, I was making the observation that the vast majority of the support staff in that situation is women. And I'm reminded of a talk, like the women are doing phenomenal things, and I have to go and I have to pick up drugs because she's down on post-chemo drugs, so I got to go pick up drugs, and I go into, in Canada, here's Shoppers Drug Mart, where they fill the orders. And 80% of the people in filling those prescriptions are women.
Yes.
And I'm observing that women are heart-centered naturally because, one, that's, I think, the way their biology is such, but also it's part of their role. And they have actually gotten bum steer in the business context because business has been hard-headed, just go and push and drive and whatever up till this point in time. But I think that this is the rise of yin. This is the rise of creative, heart-centered leadership. And women, as Elizabeth Gilbert points out, women, 2,000 years ago when Buddha, Jesus Christ, and everybody else was saying, hey, we need to be more loving, we need to be more heart-centered. Elizabeth Gilbert points out, what the hell? Who do you think's been actually keeping our society and tribes and groups of people heart-focused and making sure we're looking after each other if it's not the women? So this message that's been around for 2,000 years that we need to become more heart-centered in all the things that we actually have, do, and be, is now really coming home to roost right now because the industrial age put a structure together that actually supported men primarily being hard-headed and push, drive, and whatever. That's not heart-centered.
It's so funny that you say that. I just was watching the video that we did at the Archangel Summit when we saw Elizabeth Gilbert speak on that.
Yeah.
And the quote that she said was, so moving from the profane masculine and the profane feminine, which is where we've sort of found ourselves in society right now, is to move into the divine feminine and the divine masculine. It's the masculines that need to give up the self to understand that we're all connected and it's something bigger and beyond us, which is, for me, the understanding of what heart-centered is we are all connected, we are all one, we're all connected at the heart of each other and the heart of the earth. And so men need to give up the self and women need to get a fucking self, as she said. And that really spoke to me because that had been my life. I had just given up my voice. Like I don't know if I was in the live I shared, with my business mentor saying, what does heart-centered even mean? And I almost gave that up. Well, yeah, what does that mean? Like, who am I to think that could change the world, in our moments of, because we're so used to in the society giving up our voice or it not being heard or respected or honored. And so we give and we give and we give away to others instead of really like focusing on filling ourselves up. And that's not just to speak to women, and sometimes we use the label of a woman and a man, but we all have masculine and feminine qualities within us. And I believe as well that this COVID and what's occurring on the planet, for every single person, we're going to have our own individual story that is waking us up to some degree. For me, it's really waking me up to really, stepping into my power and stepping into my vision with more like tenacity and courage. And, so everyone's going to have their different story in terms of how it's affecting them. And I think that if we can look at it through the lens of, and one of my mentors, Melissa Jolly, a heart-centered woman who created a phenomenal system years ago, and it's gone global, and it's all based on color, and it's magical and fun. But she had this understanding of like, we really need to look at things with perfection, the eye of perfection, instead of judgment. Really, that's the flip side of it. And what if everything is perfect? And what if we can look at all the challenges that come into our life of, okay, this is perfect, because that allows us to really take the lesson and then step into more of our authentic being in that process. And I was at the park, like where I live here at Flow Studios, is near Sugar Beach, and I've been going there, and we've been there on that rock that's there. Yep. Well, it was all empty, and they have a sign up now that's a $5,000 fine if you stay there longer than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And there was this part of me that was like, oh, like all of everything's being taken away, like we're being so, almost went there, but because I've been practicing this mindset for so long, I instantly took the reframe of, what's happening right now is there was one person I saw and there was another person there, and I just had this sense of like, I'm just gonna be me and do qigong on this rock right now, like have this whole park to myself. Someone came by and took a video of me doing it, and what if this is creating an opportunity where we're really observing the synchronicity of life. You know, like what if that opportunity when I go to the park and I'm going to meet, you know, someone who gets inspired by watching this, or watching a Qigong practice, or, you know, it's like to take this reframe. And in our society, we've just been so busy and parks are filled and we've all kind of, you know, had our phones on, and it wasn't really important to try to connect to people. It's like forcing us to change the way we connect and observe our reality and really honor what is most important to us. So that was just a heart-centered reframe that I took on you know, some of the things that are being imposed on us, that we feel like we don't have control over our freedom, but what if we really do, and this is really waking us up to our freedom.
Yes. Well, and we talked often about the stages we go through in personal development. We first get an understanding of, this is who I think I am. So I'm going to define myself based on what my history is. And it's going to be based on beliefs that I picked up from my mom and my dad, and in society, and in school, and business, and that type of thing. And I define myself, there's who I am. I start to stretch on that journey of furthering who I am. And I start to get in touch with who I'm not, which ends up being Mr. freaking fucking ugly when things don't work out the way I want them to, which is my case. I used to be freaking pretty, you know, pretty hardwired to actually, no, I'm going to get things done the way I need them to get done. And if I don't really care about your feelings. I'm just going to actually blow through. And that situation, that works in business still, because the competitive orientation, and the reason why your mentors would have said, what are you talking about heart-centered? Heart-centered gets blown out of the water by a competitive, male-oriented, historically speaking, that's actually just going to blow you out of the water. And there's also, from a value proposition historically, there's not been a lot of people who will actually buy into that. Whereas when you're in a crisis and someone's actually selling, I have a solution that really helps you get in touch with who you are at a deeper way. So you move from who you thought you were, you're experiencing terror, as we and most people are experiencing it, who you're not, so you can actually move to the other side, who you authentically are.
Right.
Which you are authentically are heart-centered. We are social animals. And it's interesting, 1996, because Jeremy Rifkin actually wrote a great book called Empathic Civilization. So he cites all kinds of examples in history that suggest really strongly that we are all connected, one, and we are all very empathic, social, and we really, really care about our fellow human being. Mm-hmm. And his point in the discovery they found was this thing called mirror neuron, which is actually right up here in the prefrontal, right behind the prefrontal cortex, which is in the head. So imagine my surprise when I actually come in. No, it's the head where the mirror is. No, it's heart-centered. So heart-centered, all that means is you light up at a different frequency to light up the head at a whole totally different bandwidth. You start to actually, you know, using David Hawkins' frame of reference, you can really only get to about 499 in terms of your scale of consciousness if you're head oriented. Mm-hmm. As soon as you move to the heart, you get to 500 to 1,000. Yeah. It just bumps the whole thing automatically because it's an amplified vibrational frequency. It's not exclusive to, you got to think with your heart particularly. Mm-hmm. It's about opening the heart so it informs the head and the gut and the feet and the hands and everything else in a way that's really, 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 really expansive.
Yes. Well, and they've measured this scientifically. The electromagnetic field of the heart is like some 10 or more times stronger than that of the mind. And in the more patriarchal, we put that ahead of what the heart is about. And so we've lost our authenticity, and we're really awakening and putting value back to what is most important. And Andrew Moss is on the line. Hi, Andrew. He's saying, Andrew, what if we never had control? And that's just it. Yeah, like from the head level, we've thought that we've had control, and this is why, you know, the rise of mental health is like, if we don't surrender to the heart and to our true nature, we of course we're going to be, you know, with this dis-ease of the mind, because the linear path is not authentically who we are. In the heart, and being in the heart, it opens us up to what we talk a lot about, is this complex, nonlinear, quantum capacity that we have as humans when we connect to the power of our heart. And I believe this is all our superpower, as we talk about, is our ability to love everything, even the challenging situations, and to also love and understand that, yes, we never actually did have control over the way things are. And even in the world that I come from, in the spiritual world, and talking about manifesting, I created this and I made that, and it's a longer conversation. I've made plenty of videos talking about that, so I won't go into it, but it's really to understand that the creation happens from that heart space, and the only control that we have is how we respond to what is going on around us. And if we can respond to everything with love, it opens up more scenarios of more things to truly love. And when we respond with the head, or we respond with any sort of thing that relates to fear, trying to fight or judge, or we'll create more things in our reality to judge or to fear. And this is the big jump in our evolution, is to realize we're not victims of our reality. We're not victims.
Yes.
We are empowered when we live in the heart space and understand that we can really create miracles every day from that place, and to be able to let go of control, but know that you have control over your own energy. And so this is exciting, because it's, we talk about this concept of energetic mathematics. So the energy of the heart, and all these hearts just coming online with so much light and so much love, and so many people feeling their place in the world, ironically enough, with what's happening on this planet. And so more and more rapid synchronicities are happening, and more convergence is happening, and this coming together, and people reaching out. And I was on a Zoom call where they were talking about business, and they're saying now's not a time to sell. It's not a time to sell. And this is something that we've been dialoguing about, on how we foresaw business changing over a year ago, right? Which is what marketelling is all about. And really the premise of it was, we just want to get to know who the people are behind what their service is. And then if you resonate, then you reach out. And we've been seeing this reframe, because it's ultimately about building trusted connection with people that you can see they're really doing what they love, not because it's from the head, not because they're trying to acquire something outside or control. And this is the energetic mathematics of the heart expansion happening around the globe right now.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and while you were talking, there was so many different things I wanted to actually add to it, but where I net out on it is, given my vintage and given where my wife is at, we've been doing this type of orientation to music, which is heart-centered music, and being creative. I play guitar, singer-songwriter, and she is a singer-songwriter, plays guitar. And we did touring, and we had a band, and all kinds of wonderful things, and did things called albums and such back in the day. And so that was really, really heart-centered. Then brought that back to business, and started to apply this orientation of being creative. You can't control anything. So there's where, from control, we trigger the fear response all the time. And from being in charge, or learning how to be in charge of our response, we can actually choose the flow response. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting, because she's in a circumstance right this second where her mother died from the cancer that Sharon currently has. So she had this, and she died, her mother died at 47, when Sharon was relatively young. And the idea with epigenetics in particular, they help us understand that between the age of 0 and 6, we download the biases and all the patterns of beliefs and perceptions, interpretations from our parents. So Sharon's got all the download of her mom, as it relates to where her mom was when she was born, and then also going through that, where her mom was when she got cancer. So Sharon's been talking off and on during our relationship that if she does get cancer, she's going to go the route that is the standard route, and then the biochemical, and then bioenergetic. And so part of her dance has been, and it's been an amazingly challenging time, because society would say you have to fight cancer. You have to be freaked out about cancer. And her point is, I'm not fighting anything. I'm going to dance with cancer. I'm going to learn how to dance because she's already beaten fibromyalgia, which you're not supposed to do that. She's also beaten hypoglycemia. Sharon learns through the body. So here we go, the big frigging one, which is cancer. And she goes from feeling really confident about where she is and where that her numbers are going to absolutely blind white terror. Mm-hmm. And this is the difference between really heart-centered leadership and head-centered. Mm-hmm. The head will be freaked out because the precedent in our society says if you actually go and you start to be more accessible and more heart-oriented, you're going to get killed. You're not only just going to get rejected for who you are because you're not good enough, which is, and that's the reason we actually inherited all those beliefs from our parents and parents through the ages. So you can't dare go and be authentically you. Well, she's been literally in the dance between, if in fact I fight this, that's an old paradigm, I am not going to win. I know that. My mother fought it, she died.
Yeah.
So what she needs to do is learn to dance. And the only way to learn to dance is to surrender to the heart and dance from the heart, which means that as you open up your heart, it fucking hurts. Not only because you've got cancer and chemicals and everything else going on, but the heart kind of says, am I safe? Can I dance in this craziness that's going on when so many people are afraid on the planet? So we've been in this space for 2 years now. And that was difficult enough as a business, and she's not working at all anymore. Then COVID comes in, so she's in the population with the highest risk to be able to go and potentially engage with somebody. And when I'm out, or she doesn't go out of the house much unless she's going to the chemo suite and or we go for a drive in the country, which you're not allowed to do. So we're not even doing that right now. And the terror would otherwise be so overwhelming that I don't think she could function or I could function. So we'd already been on this path of shifting from head orientation to heart orientation, so it's not as wildly difficult for us as it probably is for a bunch of other people. But let me tell you, it still has its moments where, oh my God, my wife is going to die, and what the hell can I do? And here's what I'm concluding I can do. I can be outrageously heart-centered. I can be outrageously loving. I can be outrageously accommodating of all the people that I interact with who are terrified, who do not know how to orient from a heart-centered place. And in being that way, I bring much more peace to myself and joy to myself. And then when I'm with my wife, she's in a space where she's able to be that way. And she gets the confirmation that, yes, it's safe. The world's safe for her to really surrender to who she authentically is. And she has the benefit, if you will, is if she doesn't do that, the probability of her dying actually goes right through the roof. So there's nothing like being between a rock and a hard place. And we, as a species, evolve at the speed of crisis. So I've been navigating a crisis for quite a long time, because who else would want to actually go and buy heart-centered leadership, heart-centered strategy, heart-centered freaking whatever in business? Are you a flake? And the interesting thing with the clients that we've worked with over the years, we've had clients for 5, 10, 15 years, they would never tell anybody that they're working with us because we were seen as voodoo or shapeshifters, or they didn't understand why it worked and they really didn't care, but we were their secret sauce. And now all of a sudden the world is opening up to the secret sauce in a way that they didn't even know it existed. They hoped it existed, and I start to see what I call the tall poppies around the world coming up and then saying, hey, we've been doing this for 10 years. Hey, we've been doing this for 25 years. Hey, we've been doing it for 18 years. And it really works, despite the legacy system saying, no, head first. Your approach to strategy and structure and process, rewards, motivations, all that kind of stuff has to be head first. And we're looking around right now, said, if that was going to work, it would have worked. Mm-hmm. It's not working anymore. This is the big pivot. So I'm actually feeling very blessed being able to share the story that Sharon and I have been on and not bawl my eyes out while I'm trying to make my point of how terrifying this is, at the same time how exhilarating it is to actually start to discover that, hey, we have the power, literally, to actually be able to go and transform, but transcend our humanness.
That's right.
And by transcending our humanness, we transcend all our unconscious bias and all our beliefs. And if you will, we're going to transcend all of the things that Buddhism calls, what's the term for patterns in Buddhism? Karma.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that it's not just it's transcending the humanness and also reclaiming the humanness.
Yes.
Reclaiming,
merging with it.
Yeah, like merging. Yeah. It truly is this coming home of heaven is not a place out there. And we had this conversation before. It's not about waiting to receive this heavenly experience of what we perceive that out there experience is of bliss and enlightenment and abundance. Like, what if our whole goal of being human on this beautiful earth ship, Mother Earth, is to bring heaven to this earth and to experience humanness, our human connection, all of our spectrum of emotion, and bring that home here and create that here. And this is a part of why I believe I'm on the planet, is to bring this message of heaven is not a place out there, it is a place here. It's not about fighting things right, which we've tried to do for so many years. It's about loving it all right and understanding that's the only way that we will really fully arrive here as a sustained, thriving species, is to adopt this understanding. And that what a powerful time to be able to observe our species in this way, to observe ourselves in this way. And I just want to acknowledge you and Sharon. It's been such a beautiful journey to be on this path with you guys in synchronicity over this last year. And you guys have been such a help for me in my life in transcending some of my patterns and old ways of being. And we definitely can't do it alone. I've been saying this as well. We need community to help us just perceive things that are beyond our understanding, and we all have a part to play. And this is what this network is all about, is about connecting to others that have this understanding, and that we could rise and sort of break through the noise of all, we've had conversations about the conspiracies that are arising. And, the word conspiracy has just like a little bit of a negative tone to it, depending on what side you're on of a conspiracy. But the point is, like, hey, we're here to transcend sides, and we're here to transcend our anger in terms of how things were in our system. And maybe each conspiracy has its own valid viewpoint, but the point of it is, are you coming to that idea with love, or are you coming to that idea with fear and anger? And to understand that we are creating our reality, and every reality we've been talking about since we met, everything is 100% subjective. So yes, all of those things that we're watching that are now being broadcast, this playing field of what it means to be a broadcaster has been leveled. A broadcaster now is someone who shows up on a Facebook Live or has a YouTube channel and puts their ideas out there. That's a reality that they're creating, and whoever follows that and adopts that understanding, they will create that. So, this time of going in and reflecting on, what are we creating? What is the story we are telling the market? This is the concept of what market telling is about. What are we telling? What are we putting out there? How are we spinning stories? And what are we listening to? And how is that influencing our heart? Does it make our heart feel expansive, or do we feel constrictive? And, as we are all opening our hearts, it brings us more and more in touch with all of this spectrum of human emotion. And sometimes we don't want to go there. And that's a fear response, right? How can we sit even with our ugliness, even with the challenges, and be able to love that? And so you and Sharon are just a really great example of diving into, new ways of being and leading by example. You've been kind of ahead of your time, both of you, for quite some time. And,
which sounds really sexy, right? Like, oh my God, wouldn't that be just awesome to be on the bleeding edge? Let me tell you, what I think I probably said is, if you're on the bleeding edge and leading something like this, you don't get arrows just in the front of your chest. You get arrows in the back as well, because people historically have been terrified about what it is, what the implications are of what we actually bring to the party, and helping people realize you're basically, you're not in control of anything, but you're in charge of your response and how you respond. We've been taught responsibility. In my situation, responsibility, how dare I smile and talk about the terror of navigating cancer and not go weepy or want to fight it or go, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. I got to say, really from the heart, Sharon actually getting cancer is probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life, because it woke me up to the fact that I don't have any time to dick around. I have to be wildly present, and I have to be really, really deeply honest with me and look at feedback and saying, if this is working, typically feedback is such that if I'm actually being a certain way, the feedback is, that's great, keep going. But if I'm not getting what it is I want as a function of the way I'm doing and being, I have to look at that feedback, and I have to take, like, I'm running out of time here. I got to really take a hard look at that and pivot, which is what our whole premise for what we do to help people pivot or lead or all those types of things. It's fundamental, but we're not taught that. We're saying that's irresponsible. We have to avoid risk. We now have a whole industry of risk managers who really their job is to try and look in the economy and to identify there's a risk we go into South America right now. There's a risk over here, so let's avoid that. So professional avoiders are being paid massive big bucks. Professional arbitrageurs in financial markets and financial currencies get paid really big bucks to avoid all kinds of little blowouts, and then they get rewarded in a really big way. Well, that system, I think, is now we're starting to move into the sunset of that system, and the new system that's evolving, which is more of a bottom-up, decentralized, win-win-win or no deal system. That's the system that that's the only system millennials are going to accept.
Yeah,
and
that's what we,
yeah, we talk about this all the time. I'm going to be dead and gone. The millennials will all be in leadership, big leadership, legacy leadership roles, and they've already made it really clear they're here for a good time, not to freaking go and do what our generation did and our generation before us.
Yeah, this grassroots is really like to understand there isn't a leader that should be giving us the authority of our inner world. We are all leaders of our own reality, and I think this is what my generation has really adopted and understood. It's like how you're showing up and leading in your own life. And Andrew wrote, for many, control was simply a way of living based on routine, which brings comfort because there is a certain certainty created. So yes, the risk of being able to change a routine, and I talk a lot about this for myself, adopting this stance as a yogini, this ability to die every day and be able to change every day is so important, because in the old model we get so comfortable with just being in our comfort box and doing the same thing and everything being predictable. That's just not what life is about. And the longer we stay in that, the bigger and louder the message that wakes us up. And that this is what I see is happening as a society. And I've also been one of those types of leaders that's been a little bit ahead of the times, at least a year and sometimes even more. And I would go out there with so much conviction to share my message, and then the arrows would stop me. And when I had met you, I had gotten to this I was in a big pivot myself when we had first met. And I was kind of at this place of like, you know, really death, like this concept, why am I here to live? And I think that's what death, when we really look at that, and I think it's something, at least in this culture, that we don't talk a lot about. But for me, it's been so important to really point us to the meaning of what life is. And
absolutely,
to give us that, you know, that real vigor about what life is about. And when we had first met, I was just kind of, you know, I'm just gonna be me. And we've had conversations right off the beginning. And I remember first meeting you and being in that delicate situation, watching you and Sharon, and just saying to you, you need to bring more playfulness, and thinking, who the hell am I to say to this man that I just met to be more playful when his wife is in this situation? But just because I had really looked at death for quite some time and in our culture, and then contrasting that when I travel to India and other cultures and how they celebrate, celebrate when somebody dies, and they bring, it's just a whole other energy about it. And they also have this whole other understanding that it's not the end when we die either. We actually are able to connect through, this energy age that we talk about, that the relationships actually continue beyond that. And so a part of my passion is also just speaking about the other ways that we view death, and to be able to face our mortality in a way that empowers us to live brighter and stronger and with more courage. And so I'm grateful for all my old self really died when I had met you. I was in a dying process myself. And how do we bring, and it's funny, I have a video exactly 1 year ago on April 13th talking about this I'm grieving, and how do I bring celebration to this grief, even though, like you said, when you're letting your heart stay open, it's painful as friggin', like you're up here one day just like so excited and feeling so free and liberated, and then the next moment you're just don't know if you can breathe, and feeling hopeless at times, and to be able to allow yourself to experience the highs and lows of our emotional experience, I feel that's our superpower.
Well, that's what we're here to merge our beingness with our humanness, and the humanness has gotten most of the attention up to this point in time. So humanness is, the navigation of the humanness component is typically head, the navigation of the being component is the heart, and we're here to integrate the two. Yes. And it's a whole other dance floor, literally a whole other dance floor when you pivot from a head orientation to a heart orientation. The dance floor just opens up exponentially. You can go from 0 to 100 from the head. You can go it pretty fast, and I tend to be a head person historically, but you can go to a 0 to a billion and beyond in a heart space, and it's instantaneous. So the heart and HeartMath, they're an organization in the States, I think, who have actually a bunch of scientists around the science around HeartMath. So as you call it, energetic mathematics. They've actually done a very good job over the years of actually explaining this kind of stuff. But this is all stuff by design that's been off the radar because it threatens, historically speaking, it has threatened the mainstream orientations to business, to wealth, to infrastructure, to our medical system, to our financial system, to absolutely everything, which worked really well. It worked really well to get us to this point, but it's time for a bit of a pivot, because we now have for the first time ever in the last few hundred years, we have a well-being crisis. And everyone has a real strong sense of, okay, it's a well-being crisis. People are dying, which is a very unfortunate thing. And the fact that people are dying has really gotten everybody's attention. So the governments have taken money, and they're actually bringing money and transferring wealth to help everybody. The one that actually is going to get the most attention, though, is once we've got some sense of the well-being, where are we going to go with the economic component, the wealth component? Because once people actually start to experience the fact that, wait a minute, when there was a well-being crisis, a lot of people in position power, especially bureaucracy and governments, were forced to come together to look at, why the hell are we on the planet here? Is it to make a bunch of money, or is it to maybe be living in a place where we can actually live and sustain it?
Yeah, actually.
That debate has not been front and center at the executive suite ever.
Yeah, and Andrew's saying, not sure it worked really well, ... And I think that is the thing, like, if we look at, and the COVID is one thing, and all the people dying, like, just sending massive love to everyone who's facing this situation right now, but like, what about all the people that are dying from suicide, and all the mental health, and all of the people, right? Like, our society has been sick for a while, and so this change has, been way overdue, and there's been so many people and heart-centered leaders that have been putting themselves out there for a long time to make this shift. But like we say, it just seems that we need some sort of crisis in order to wake us up and shake us up into the new ways. And this is the idea of flow, and this idea of what new business will look like, because It's that ability to constantly adapt and flow with the market and understand that we are all connected, yes, and we all have our 100% subjective view of reality. And so how can we show up and support each other in business to thrive by doing what we love in a flow type of structure? And this is what, you know, you and I have been talking about and working on for some time now, to create a completely new sort of flow structure business models. And the structure is really this understanding that there's nothing out there that can hold everything up forever. The only structure that we really need to maintain is our inner structure. And how much time are we giving to the structure of ourselves, of what makes our heart happy, and how we listen to our body and listen to our intuition, because that puts us into this flow, that puts us into this true resonance with our energetic mathematics of who we are, and it creates this type of synchronicity that brings us into the right moment at the right time, connects us to the right people at the right time. And I've been talking about just seeing this landscape of business completely changing, and you know, have your understanding that you bring to businesses is this holistic understanding. And we're in a real pivot ourselves in this next pivot in terms of branching out, and you've got some exciting partnerships that clients that are coming online, and you know, talking about building this super team and looking for other, you know, flow leaders that are in flow connect to us, and we just say, okay, how can we help? And that was the other thing. I was really inspired watching the Archangel video that I made, that we went to that event back in October, and talking about the one speaker talking about radical generosity and this
understanding
of putting other people's dreams first, and how I mean, it's about nurturing our own dreams for sure, but there's something amazing happens when we put other dreams and we make other people feel relevant, and we really are nurturing other people's dreams, because at the end of the day, we all have the same dream. I believe we all want to feel prosperous, we all want to feel healthy, we all want to feel connected, we all want to have peace. Like, these are just our innate natural desires as human beings, and I believe, and I'm very excited about the future of business.
I am as well, and this is such a hot topic.
I know we're way over our time,
and I could continue to riff for days on this. So
yes.
I'm going to not do that, and we'll sign off. But I certainly do appreciate the comments, because the comments provide the opportunity to direct the conversation. That's awesome.
Yeah, Andrew's saying, I love teams. Andrew, yes, we know, and I love what you're doing as well, and we need to connect. And
yes, we need to become more conscious in terms of navigating and pulling this together, because I think it's more, at this point in time, it's more obvious, because what's presenting is this need, whereas before we've tried to actually, you know, like, believe me, we've tried to actually do this so many freaking times. I'm just getting tired of actually going out in advance of a crisis. So post-crisis, I kind of know exactly what to do. So well, everything is totally on strategy.
Yeah, well, and that's been, I think this is the dance of, you know, we've been talking about, I've been trying to do this, you've been trying to do this, and, you know, you have situations that sort of make you want to close your heart, and, you know, you in the closing of the heart, it's like, who can I trust? And you don't, and also the disappointment and all those things that we try to protect ourselves from, and that, going back to risk, is we can only really succeed if we do take risks. And now more than ever, not only do I feel very safe in that, that just speaks to the resonance of just stepping into what lights your heart up, and doing what you love, and just honoring flow and synchronicities, and we'll see where it all goes.
Lovely ending to a lovely conversation. I'll do a quick outro.
As we like to say over here on Flow Network, flow burnout.
Yeah,
and
you be you.
Be you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for your comments. Thanks. Please share this if you think this conversation might resonate with people. And we're here every Thursdays at 12:12, unless we have some technical troubles. We're a couple minutes later. And we just love to have these conversations and connect to other heart-centered leaders, of course. So have a beautiful rest of your day. Flover and out.
Flover and out.
Gotta find my outro video. There it is.